Do you believe Harvey Milk deserves his country's thanks? A simple question that should have a simple answer from any defense secretary. But when Sorensen forced Pete Hegseth to confront the reality of military service for LGBTQ veterans, what followed exposed a troubling mindset about who deserves recognition in our armed forces. This isn't just about one veteran, it's about the soul of American service.
From Illinois, Mr. Sorensen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Secretary, to the General, for joining us today. Mr. Secretary, I'm hopeful that we can come to an agreement that we need both sides of the chambers working together for the betterment of the military. Do you believe that bipartisanship is essential to the mission of our armed forces, yes or no? Bipartisanship.
I think bipartisanship can be a wonderful thing.
Great. Because I didn't come to Congress with political baggage. I was called here because, I believe, and my constituents believe, that we need impartial, bipartisan people to find solutions to complex problems. But today, this nation is being pushed and pulled in so many different directions. I had a constituent this weekend that said, Eric, I don't even know what to believe anymore. Facts don't matter. Conspiracy theories run rampant like brush fires without anyone to quell them. So I'm hoping you can shoot straight from the hip with me. We're almost done. Do you have a targeted number of reductions in civilian personnel in our armed forces?
We have very diligently tried to identify the places where we might need to make changes, but for the most part, it's been a DRP process, a volunteer process of civilians to try to reduce the number for cost savings.
Is there an analysis that supports how you're coming up with these decisions?
We looked at about 8 to 10%, Congressman, but ultimately, everyone here acknowledges that the civilian size of the DoD has exploded over the last 20 years. And so where there are room for efficiencies, we are actively trying to find them and right-size those spots, because a lot of those places are not making us more nimble or faster at what we do. And it's not necessarily about the people, but it's the numbers.
Right. What do we say to the people that have strived in their entire life? These are former, retired members of the military working as civilians back home. What do we say to them?
Well, almost all of them took a voluntary DRP to separate.
Do you have a timeline for making these cuts?
Like I said, almost all of them were volunteers who themselves decided to retire early.
Okay, I want to reset for just a moment. And I'm going to be honest with you. I learned a lot about military service from both of my grandpas who served and fought in World War II. My grandpa Sorensen was a proud Navy photographer. I have his photos. They're framed above my desk here on Capitol Hill. I learned to be proud of him. And from him, I learned how to become proud of veterans, which is why I want to talk about a different veteran, one who served in the Korean War from 1951 to 55. He served courageously like my grandpa Sorensen. But unlike my grandpa, this veteran was forced to resign from the Navy. I'm talking about Harvey Milk, because he was gay. You see, as a kid, all I wanted to be was the weatherman on TV. I learned that I could have gone into the Army or the Navy to learn meteorology, but someone like me wasn't allowed. They didn't want someone like me, Mr. Secretary. There wasn't anything that I could do to change myself or the way that my nation thought of me. And so I want to keep this very simple. Do you believe that Harvey Milk is a veteran who deserves his country's thanks?
Sir, the decision to rename the ship was...
I'm just asking, do you believe that Harvey Milk is a veteran who deserves his country's thanks? Yes or no?
If his service was deemed honorable, yes.
Yesterday, the Secretary of the Navy was in your seat. He couldn't give me a straight answer. I disagree with your leadership and his, because I believe that every veteran deserves our thanks. We all walk in the footsteps of leaders before us. And you may not find the value in the fact that many of those people are women with different skin colors, different backgrounds, different talents, immigrants, gay, straight, transgender, disabled. You may want to change it, but you can't. Because the America that you and I both serve is a place where everyone has the ability, or should have the ability, to grow up and be the hero their grandpa was. I wanted to do that when I was a kid. We're going back to that time. Gay kids like me, they don't want to go into the Army. They don't want to go into the Navy because you don't care for them. It's happening all over our country. My grandpa taught me never to judge the value of a veteran's service. And I hope, Mr. Secretary, you learn to do the same in your capacity, and you can find it in your heart to make that part of your process. May God continue to watch over our troops, our veterans, and our military families. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair.
What Representative Sorensen accomplished in that exchange wasn't just political theater. It was a masterclass in exposing how personal bias can undermine institutional integrity. By invoking Harvey Milk's service record and his own family's military legacy, Sorensen forced a conversation about who gets to be considered worthy of honor in American defense culture. The question about Harvey Milk wasn't random. Milk served honorably in the Korean War from 1951 to 1955, but was forced to resign because of his sexual orientation under military policies that treated LGBTQ identity as incompatible with service. When Sorensen asked whether Milk deserves the nation's thanks, he was testing whether Hegseth could separate military performance from personal prejudice. Hegseth's response, if his service was deemed honorable, revealed everything. That conditional phrasing matters because it suggests some veterans' honor depends on bureaucratic determinations rather than their actual service record. It's a way of avoiding accountability while maintaining plausible deniability, but the damage was already done. By hedging on whether a Korean War veteran deserves recognition, Hegseth exposed the kind of thinking that treats some service members as second-class contributors to national defense. Sorensen's personal revelation about wanting to serve but being excluded because of who he is adds another layer. When he says someone like me wasn't allowed, he's not just sharing autobiography, he's illustrating how discriminatory policies create talent drain. The military loses capable people, not because they can't perform, but because institutional bias prevents them from serving in the first place. This connects to broader concerns about military readiness and recruitment. When the Defense Secretary signals that some veterans' contributions are conditional on their identity, it sends a message to current and potential service members. LGBTQ+ troops hear that their sacrifices might not be fully recognized. Young people considering military careers see an institution that may not value their full participation. The result is predictable: reduced recruitment from demographics. The military needs to maintain operational strength. Sorensen also highlighted the human cost of this mindset. His constituents' confusion about what to believe anymore reflects a broader erosion of institutional trust. When military leadership appears to base recognition on political or social preferences rather than service records, it undermines confidence in military fairness and professionalism. That's not just a perception problem, it's an operational one. Trust in leadership affects unit cohesion, morale, and mission effectiveness. The exchange also revealed how cultural battles can distract from core defense responsibilities. Instead of discussing military strategy, equipment needs, or force readiness, the hearing became about whether certain veterans deserve acknowledgement. That shift happens when nominees bring ideological baggage to positions that require institutional focus. The Secretary of Defense should be concerned with military capability, not adjudicating which service members meet contemporary cultural standards. What makes this particularly troubling is the precedent it sets. If recognition becomes conditional on meeting shifting social criteria, military service loses its objective foundation. Combat effectiveness, leadership under pressure, and commitment to mission become secondary to whether someone fits prevailing attitudes about acceptable identity. That's how professional institutions become political instruments. Sorensen's closing point about his grandfather's teaching, never judge the value of veteran service, captures the fundamental principle at stake. Military honor should be based on performance, sacrifice, and commitment to country, not on whether someone's identity aligns with current political preferences. When that principle erodes, the military stops being a merit-based institution and becomes another arena for cultural sorting. The broader implications extend beyond LGBTQ+ issues to any group that might fall out of political favor. If veteran recognition becomes contingent on social acceptability, it creates a precedent for excluding or diminishing any service member whose identity becomes politically inconvenient. That's not just unfair to individuals, it's strategically dangerous for a military that depends on diverse talents and perspectives to address complex global challenges. This moment also highlights why military leadership confirmation hearings matter beyond partisan politics. The people who run defense institutions shape military culture for years. When nominees demonstrate inability to separate personal bias from institutional responsibility, it signals how they'll approach personnel decisions, unit leadership, and strategic planning. Character questions aren't sidebar issues, they're predictive indicators of institutional management. The path forward requires military leadership that can distinguish between personal conviction and professional duty. Defense secretaries don't have to abandon their beliefs, but they must be able to compartmentalize them when institutional integrity is at stake. That means recognizing all veterans who served honorably, regardless of personal characteristics, and ensuring that recognition policies are based on performance rather than identity politics. Without that foundation, military institutions become extensions of cultural conflict rather than defenders of national security.